Sup my beautiful people, here is long awaited part 4, hope you enjoy. I also want to say that, I know Todoroki and Ochako would never treat Midoriya this way. They have this attitude purely for content of this series, so do not kill me for making them assholes for the time being. Okay, enjoy this soft fluff hurt comfort. I think I don't know. The green-haired boy woke up to a sweet smell of almost burnt caramel intruding his nostrils. A pleasant intrusion. He couldn't get enough of the strong scent. Even when he was younger he liked the way Kacchan smelled, and he still did. It was a way of identifying Katsuki's moods as well. Maybe that was just Deku though. After all, he did observe everyone way too much. Kacchan. Deku whispered as he watched the blonde sleeping peacefully. The top of his ash blonde hair radiated a golden glow with the morning sunshine that streamed down into the room through gaps in the curtains, highlighting floating dust and lint. Deku smiled as the blonde's nose wiggled as he stirred in his sleep. The hand that was resting lightly on Deku's hip tightened, large arm wrapped around his waist, pulling him into his strong chest. "Hey Kacchan?" Deku tried squirming his way out of Bakugo's tight hold. The smell of nitroglycerine up close was strong, intoxicating. "Stop watching me sleep, you creep." The blonde's morning voice was deepened below his normal tone, sounding calm, a tone Deku thinks he would never get used to. The blonde loosened his grip and Deku looked up to see the blonde looking down at him. "Morning." The blonde grunted. Deku scooted up so he was at face level. He let a hand rest on Bakugo's face. God, how good it felt to touch him in ways he knew no would ever get to. "So handsome." Bakugo rolled his eyes, smacking his lips, scowling at the cheese ball in front of him. "What? I'm speaking the truth. Kacchan is very handsome. And cute." Deku let his finger boop Bakugo's nose, squealing. Not a millisecond later, as the blonde was on top of him, knees on either side of his hips, hands at the sides of his head, making Deku feel so small under him. Bakugo grunted. "I'm not fucking cute, you are." He leant in as Deku let his hands trail up Katsuki's bare shoulders, hands resting at his neck as their lips meet in a tender kiss. Deku hummed as Bakugo deepened the pressure on their lips before pulling away. Of course, their faces were covered in a blush. "What are we doing today?" Bakugo plopped back next to Deku, one hand resting over his chest while the other above his head, disappearing in his ash blonde bed hair. "I had a big talk with Shitara last night. We're going out." "Huh?" Bakugo turned his head, watching those green eyes on his. "As much as I hate it, me, you and your shitty friends are going out to lunch or whatever you would us like to do." Deku looked concerned. He didn't want to stir the pot with them anymore, even if he thought they were being a little inconsiderate. Do you think that's a good idea?" "I think it's a brilliant fucking idea." Bakugo let the hand resting on his chest fall on Deku's pillow, hand playing at the green curls. Deku was like a puppy. He melted into the touch, instantly relaxing against the bed, closing his eyes as Bakugo lightly scratched at his head, then twirled a curl around his finger, gently pulling, repeating his actions. "For what it's worth, I don't give a shit what they think of me or us, but I know it's upsetting you and I won't let anyone hurt you, Deku." Deku didn't respond. He didn't have to. Not like he would win this argument with Bakugo. "Come on, we should go get breakfast." Bakugo on top of Deku again for a quick second, placing a fast peck on the boy's temple. Deku rolled on his side, watching as Bakugo opened his closet, pulling a shirt from the neatly hanged clothes. "You gonna open the blinds?" "No." His tone was defensive. Deku couldn't help but smile. Something else he'd still known about his Kacchan is he hated the way the sun pierced through the windows in early hours in the morning, waking him before he wanted to be awake. The blonde threw his signature black shirt on Deku, admiring his toned body as the fabric took a glide, covering his abs from view. Horizontal ellipsis. Bakugo smirked, head tilting as he watched Deku zone out in his direction. "What?" Deku was so deep in thought he didn't realize Bakugo was in front of him, grabbing his chin in his fingers, pulling his gaze up to him. Hello." Bakugo couldn't help but chuckle. "Come on." The blonde turned, walking to his bathroom, pulling his toothbrush from the holder. "Stupid germs." Deku was giggling at the explosive words. Bakugo was trying his best not to shout as aggressively as he brushed his teeth. Shut up, Deku. Bakugo gurgled, trying to spit the water in the sink, and began styling his hair. The blonde looked over at the green-haired boy who still laid in bed, amused watching Bakugo in his morning routine. Deku, get up. He only groaned in response, hiding under the blanket as Bakugo approached the bed. He felt the blonde's grip on the blanket as he tightened his. They tousled in a pull and pull. Deku, if you don't get up, I'm going to wrap you up in this blanket and carry you downstairs. Fine. Deku poked his head out from the covers. Kachan's bed is too warm. You can sleep in it tonight if you want. The green-haired popped up, eyes shining. Really? Yes, you dork. Now hurry up. Deku sat up, kicking the blanket in a fuss. Okay, fine. Hey Bakubro, Midoriya. Kirishima stood from the stool in the kitchen, greeting his friends with good mornings. So, everything okay? The red hair leaned into Bakugo's space, which earned him a groan as he whispered. Shitaha, leave it. For now, we just want to go train. Alright, mind if I come? For once Bakugo hesitated on allowing Kirishima to come train with him. The red hair frowned before smiling as Bakugo's nose went pink. Shut it, shitty hair, I'll kill you. Kirishima ran from the blonde's space, hiding in the lounge area with most of the class that was already up. It was a study-free morning today, so they had the morning to do whatever. Hey, have you eaten ye? The blonde asked. Deku shot his head up, stuffing his face with All Might-themed cereal. Bakugo cringed, snatching the box off him and grabbing a bowl for himself. Deku laid chest-heaving, hands pinned above his head, muscles flexed. Sweat stained his body, green hair stuck to his forehead, dampened with sweat. Blonde on top of the smaller hand, easily pinning the small wrist to the blue gym mat. His hair was a mess as sweat dripped from it to his nose, using his free hand to wipe the sweet-smelling substance from his face before releasing Deku's hands and laying next to the green. The sound's heavy breathing filled the almost empty room, the smell of caramel overpowering the room. I win. Deku giggled, looking over at the blonde. Still made you struggle. The blonde sat up on his elbow, hand trailing Deku's sides. It really took Deku for him to realize he liked the warm feeling it sent through his body, touching or receiving touch. Only from Izuku, but he's always had a longing to have him close. He just never knew the ways he could have him so close, but now he knows he doesn't want to stop. A bonus, he liked how flustered he made the nerd. That was something everyone knew and sure wasn't new to their relationship, but the ways Bakugo knew he could tease him excited him. Deku watched Bakugo's fingers lightly trail up to his chest, then up to his arm that was resting behind his head. The way the blonde's fingers felt against his skin was delightful. This was something he wanted to feel more often. I think you're pretty easy to pin. The blonde spoke low, movement so subtle it startled Deku, and Bakugo moved back atop of him. Deku admired the way Bakugo lightly traced his hands back down his body. Bakugo in awe. He would never get over just how perfect Deku's body had gotten, from scrawny to strong and lean, though still smaller than him. He loved the way Deku's hips curved inward just right, and the way his strong yet soft thighs would move gently at any movement. Especially when he was practicing his kicks and running, he truly was mesmerizing. Maybe I just make it easy for you. Deku let his hands rest on his stomach, not knowing where else to place them. But Bakugo knew better. He grabbed those hands and pinned them right back above his head. Differently than before, his fingers were so soft on Deku's skin, the palm of his hand not so rough to hold him down. I think you just like it. Deku giggled. And what if I do? Bakugo's face lit up. Deku stared intensely, smile fading as he closed the space between them. Deku pushed up, spite his hands being pinned, as their lips connect, kissing deeply before Deku used his quirk to push Bakugo off him and speed towards the other side of the room in an instant, leaving Bakugo slightly confused. Then the doors sprung open. Denki and Sero stood in active gear, smiles wide. It was almost like Denki had electricity protruding from him. Bakugo rolled his eyes, standing from the ground. Whose ass am I beating? The blonde snarled in a playful manner. Your boyfriend's. Denki wiggled his eyebrow, Sero almost immediately dropping to the floor in a fit of laughter as Denki was chased in circles, praying he leaves the gym in one piece. Later that day the clouds began filling the sky, the air growing cold. Deku hugged his jacket close to his chest as he made his way to English from the cafeteria. His friends didn't even make eye contact with him, so he couldn't eat much. Bakugo left with Kirishima to go talk to Aizawa about something, so he thought he'd leave for class early. Deku. Bakugo's voice could be heard coming from the exit of the cafeteria. Deku turned to smile at the blonde making his way over to him. Hi Kachan. Bakugo placed an arm around Deku's shoulder, pulling him close. Deku leaning his head against the blonde's body warmth. He was always so hot. You talk to Icy hot and shit? If Bakugo was going to be honest, out of all the people in class 1A, he thought Todoroki would have been accepting about them, considering how much time the three spent together, including outside of school. As much as he said he hated it, he enjoyed it. He really thought of Todoroki as a friend, so his disapproval was eating at him, but not as much as it was Deku. No. The blonde rubbed at Deku's shoulder. Why not? I don't think they want to talk to me. Well, they can fucking talk to me. Deku knew there would be no point in arguing back, so he walked to class so close to Bakugo he thought he would melt, and he was okay with that. At least he wouldn't have to deal with all this. Oi, icy hot. Round face. Bakugo let go of Deku, stomping towards the two who were surrounding a table Aida sat at. Bakugo. Todoroki spoke sternly. You assholes are coming to the mall with me and Deku this weekend. Stop being shitty friends and get your shit together. The blonde snarled, anger bubbling. Bakugo-kun, I don't think that would be a good idea. I think it would be a great idea. Deku chimed in, standing next to Bakugo. Please guys, use us up. He cut himself off, having to hold in tears. He didn't understand why he felt like crying now. He lowered his voice, looking up at his friends. You guys are supposed to be my friends, yet you haven't even heard us out. Todoroki's and Yururika's face softened like at that moment they had realized. But before they got the chance to say anything, Deku was walking out the door. It took every fiber in Bakugo's body to not lash out in a fit of anger. He turned on his heel, snatching Deku's bag from his desk and walking out the door, looking back too, through a deadly gaze. Deku. Bakugo yelled after him as he was making his way down the hall. Rain now poured from the sky, staining the giant glass windows of the building and the trees swaying in the wind. I'm okay, I just need a minute. Deku stopped, Bakugo meeting his back. I'll be fine. The sound of rain hitting the windows in a gush of wind startled Deku. His nerves felt on high alert all of a sudden. Izuku. Deku turned to look up at the blonde. His anger in his face simmered away as he wiped the tears from Deku's cheek. Look, there's no training today, and it's the weekend tomorrow. Why don't you go home? Bakugo suggested. But I still have work to do. What type of hero would I be if I let something like this affect me? You're allowed to take breaks, Deku. I'll come with you. Why, you'll stay at mine? Bakugo looked away from him, blushing crept to his cheeks. Oh, only if your mum will have me. He mumbled. Deku hugged him tightly. Bakugo rolled his eyes, leaving his arms at his side. Deku and Bakugo got excused for the day, being top students in the class payoff. They sat in a taxi on their way to their neighborhood. The rain had calmed a bit, still falling from the gray clouds as the taxi parked outside the apartment complex. Bakugo's stomach dropped. He hated it. You're sure I'm allowed? He asked, trying to beat the nervous tone from his body. Deku giggled, leaning into Bakugo before opening the door and stepping out into the rain. Deku. Bakugo grabbed his bag and ran from the taxi, slamming the door in the process. Deku stopped, looking back. He let go of the jacket that was semi-protecting him from the rain. You look like a wet dog. Bakugo approached Deku, the rain soaking them both. Deku giggled. So do you. The two stood in the rain, just looking at each other, completely lost in one another's gaze, hoping this would solve all their problems or help them understand them at least. I'm sorry. Deku frowned, tilting his head, looking up at Bakugo with puppy dog eyes. For what? Bakugo let his hand run through those now wet curls, pushing them from Deku's face. Everything. It's my fault. It's your friends aren't talking to you. Deku sighed. Smiling up at the blonde, he tiptoed, closing his eyes. It took Bakugo a moment before he realized. He leant down, placing his lips gently to Izuku's. He breathed out, relaxing every muscle in his body. His thumb rubbed lightly at Deku's jaw as Deku melted into the pleasant kiss. He wrapped his arms around Bakugo's neck, pulling him in closer. At that moment nothing mattered, not the reason Deku was home for the weekend, nor the sounds of heavy raindrops collecting in puddles around them, drenching the two in cold water. All that mattered was how soft and slow the kiss was. So intimate yet so simple. Now I can say I got kissed in the rain. Deku's cheeks were bright red with a cheesy grin from ear to ear. Bakugo grimaced, rolling his eyes, pushing Deku's forehead, prying the smaller boy off him. Chessy fucker. The blonde walked towards the entrance, the two leaving a wet trail from the door all the way to Midoriya's front door. Deku knocked, and not even a second later his mother answered the door, smiling, welcoming them in. Oh god, I didn't realize how bad it was raining. Let me get you two some towels. The two stood awkwardly in the middle of the living room while Anko ran off in a hurry to fetch some towels. Here, why don't you two hit the bath? Anko nodded, smiling, handing them warm towels from the dryer. Bakugo was about to follow Deku when Anko grabbed his arm, pulling him back so gently it was a wonder Bakugo felt the hand on his arm. Katsuki dear, Izuku has always looked up to you, even though you were the reason he would come home so upset. I know, and I am sorry for all I did. I am trying to do better. I will do better by your son. Bakugo scratched the back of his head, avoiding eye contact. Anko stepped in front of him, reaching for a hand he wanted to pull away, but he let her small hand grab him. Her touch was so soft and loving. Bakugo hated that feeling of safety he gave her at the moment, something he felt he did not deserve. Don't you hurt him? Her eyes were stern. As much as he tried, he couldn't pry his eyes from hers, look speaking so much more than words could. You have my word, I won't. She smiled, reaching up to wipe away the wet strands of hair on his forehead. You should get in there before you catch a cold. Alright. Before he walked past the door frame, her small voice caught him for a moment. No funny business in there. She giggled, watching as Katsuki almost burst like a kettle left on a stove for too long. He didn't say a word. He walked down the hall, stopping at the bathroom door. He looked at his feet. He could see the steam leaking from the gap at the bottom of the door he pushed open, getting hit by a wave of hot air. He sighed, closing the door behind him, instantly abandoning his soaked clothes that were probably going to give him a stupid cold. I made sure it was extra hot. Deku's cheery voice came from the bath, slightly bigger than the average bathtub, but it fit snug in the corner. Bakugo approached the steaming pool of water, dipping his foot in before completely submerging, humming in content as the hot water washed over his cold skin. So nice. MMHM. The two sat in comfortable silence, with nothing but the sounds of raindrops hitting the rooftop and trickling down the small bathroom window as a small branch of leaves swayed in the slight wind, scratching at the glass. The tap dripping water every few seconds, the steam leaving a warm atmosphere. Come here. Bakugo reached forward, grabbing Deku's forearm, spinning him easily in the water so his back was against his chest. Deku relaxed, leaning his head on the blonde's shoulder, looking up at him and smiling. Bakugo leant forward, a small amount of water escaping the tub in a whish noise. Bakugo uncapped the soap, squeezing a generous amount onto the damp curls. Deku giggled at the feeling of Bakugo gently massaging the soap into his hair, the scrubbing sounds of soap emitting through the bathroom. I can do that myself. Shut up, I know. Bakugo continued to work the soap while smiling to himself as Deku relaxed against him again, fingers working his way around. Kachan is good with his hands. You bet. Later that day, two spent most of it snuggled on the couch in the living room. It did take time for them to close the space in between them, not knowing how Anko would react, but now Deku played on Bakugo's chests as a pillow while Katsuki's arms held him close, watching some hero movie. Both of them criticized about how All Might would have had better solutions. The rain was still pouring outside, the wind was still blowing. Now it sounded as if it were howling against the house. The two boys' empty dinner plates sat on the coffee table with no food left on the plate. Anko guessed they both missed home-cooked meals. It has been a while now. She stood at the doorway smiling fondly at the two that were both ways too comfortable to even notice. Deku's eyes were fluttering trying to stay open. Bakugo had one eye open trying to stay awake to finish the movie, but they were losing that battle. A hot bath on a cold day and a home-cooked meal, now cuddling with your childhood best friend, was some pretty powerful melatonin. Ainko watched as they both fell into a peaceful-looking sleep, Deku turning his head away from the TV screen to snuggle more into Bakugo's chest and oversized hoodie, Bakugo's arm losing around his waist. Ainko had to snap a picture, so she did before walking over and grabbing the throw from the back of the couch and covering them so gently, careful not to wake them. A few weeks later, Deku and Bakugo spent the weekend at Deku's. Midoriya made sure they visited the Bakugo households before heading back to UA, which Bakugo absolutely threw a tantrum over. Katsuki, Izuku. Mitsuki excitedly yelled as they stood at the front door before she welcomed them as she ruffled Katsuki's hair. He walked over to the living room, placing his feet on the coffee table, looking grumpy per usual. Feet off the table. She slapped the back of his head before leaning over the back of the couch. Why are you here? Bakugo sighed, rolling his eyes. Midoriya sitting next to him on the couch, feeling nervous yet so nostalgic. It's been years since he had been in Bakugo's house. I'm dating someone. Ooh, Masaru. Our son has a boyfriend. Bakugo spun around, looking completely offended by her assumption, but also the fact she was right. The fuck you on about? He yelled. Masaru came downstairs looking worried. He smiled at Midoriya. What? Don't tell me I'm wrong. Well, don't tell me you actually have a girlfriend? TCH. He glared at her. Ha, told ya. She looked at Masaru, yelling excitedly. Pay up. She put a hand out as Masaru handed her a money note. Bakugo looked offended at this point. No, he was completely offended. Excuse me? Hold on, Katsuki. Tell us who it is. His dad spoke slowly, looking over at Deku. Izuku, or Kirishima? Shitty hair. Why would you think I would be dating shitty hair? Deku wanted to melt into the couch. Ha. Now you pay up. Mitsuki scoffed, pulling out her wallet and handing Masaru a note. You guys bet on who I would end up with. Yes, Katsuki, you had never been interested in women, and the only person you had brought over was Kirishima. And the only person you talk about 24/7 is Midoriya. You two both suck, we're leaving. Bakugo stood from the couch waiting for Deku. Hey Katsuki. What? Make sure you treat him right, and, Izuku, keep him in line. Deku giggled as Bakugo looked if he was about to implode with anger and embarrassment. Back at UA. The past few nights were not easy for Deku. He had avoided all contact once he got back. They didn't even want to look in his direction on the night of the festival, something they had planned together. He was so frustrated with them because he didn't understand why they were being so unreasonable about him dating Bakugo. They apologize when they misread the situation with the whole wet kitchen situation, so why wouldn't they keep that attitude? Oh nerd, stop mumbling. Bakugo spoke, voice raspy, opening his eyes and looking over to Deku, who was staring up at the ceiling. The pale moonlight highlighted his hair in the best way possible. The green in his eyes glistened with the light peeking through the curtains. Bakugo hated the sun waking him in the mornings, but it's moments like this that truly stopped him from fixing them. What's on your mind tonight? A lot. Deku sighed, closing his eyes. Bakugo moved to his side so he could position himself comfortably, head laying on Deku's chest, holding him close. Sleep. Deku let go of his thoughts and slept. The warmth of Katsuki so close was so comforting. Oh. Bakugo threw his gauntlets off to the side, stomping towards Todoroki and Uraraka. He couldn't care less about the other extras standing around watching. If you two don't just put this pretentious bullshit up, you will lose Izuku. The two looked offended, which pissed Katsuki off even more. How dare they feel offended? We're not being pretentious. So why else are you doing it, huh? Look, we just don't think you two would be good for each other. And who are you to think we aren't? Bakugo scoffed as the two avoided each other's gaze. Look, I couldn't give two fucks of what you two think of me, but Izuku doesn't. You guys are hurting him, and if you can't see that. He stepped closer. Then some friends and heroes you are. He made sure to hold gazes with both of them before turning on his heels and walking away. Bakugo. He stopped, turning to face who he considered a friend, fist tightening in anger. What about us? Oh, how much restraint it was taking him not to blow him right up on the spot. He gritted his teeth, looking away from half and half, snarling. Whatever you wanted to call this friendship is fucking done, but go fix yours and Izuku's before I murder you both. Bakugo picked up his gear and walked in the direction of the showers. Kirishima followed after him. Piss off, shitty hair, not in the mood. The sun was hot and training had made it worse. He loved the heat, the thrill and the power it gave him, but when he was frustrated he just wanted to shower before blowing something or someone up into bits. What you did back there for Midori bro was super manly. I think sticking up for my boyfriend is normal fucking protocol. He sniffed, wiping the sweat from his nose. Yeah, but you didn't explode anyone. Fucking wanted to. Oh, I know. Kirishima giggled. If they don't fucking fix shit, I'll literally murder them. Bakugo growled. Come on bro, I'm sure things will work out. Bakugo grimaced, looking in the direction of the red hair. Hey, shitty hair? Yeah bro. If you keep sneaking that copycat bastard in, you do realize we all lose sleep over privileges. He finished his sentence in air quotes. Kirishima blushed, face turning redder than his hair. Look man, you and Deku have. Bakugo stopped, grabbing Kirishima's shoulders so he was facing him. Difference is me and Deku actually fucking sleep and study, you idiot, and if I lose that because you cannot keep it in your pants. Dude shh. Kirishima tried shushing Bakugo by covering his mouth, only to be slapped out of the way. Dude, it's really not like that, we haven't done the devil's tango. Ejiro whined. Bakugo cringed hard, the look on his face visible. Kirishima, you have about 2 seconds to get away from me. Midoriya. Todoroki jogged towards Denki and Midoriya Ochako followed behind. Before they could get any closer, Denki and Mina stood in front of him, pushing him almost out of view. Can we help you? The tension was thick. We just want to talk to Midoriya-kun. About? Before they could answer, Deku gently pushed his way between Denki and Mina. It did feel comforting that they were willing to stick up for him, but they also had friendships he didn't need to get in the middle of them, as well as his own. Thank you too, but it's okay. Mina and Denki patted Dekus's back and walked off, throwing Todoroki and Ochako a look. Look, whatever you two have to say better be good. I'm too tired for this. Todoroki looked down at Eureka and she stepped forward, grabbing Deku's hand, thumbs rubbing over his scars. We didn't realize how much we were hurting you. We are sorry Midoriya. Please forgive us. The two bowed in front of him. Deku scrambled to pull them back to stand straight. Guys, I don't know what to say. We just wanted to protect you. We heard the whole middle school ordeal and were scared for you Midoriya, so we thought if we left you to Realis. Deku scoffed, rage bubbling under his skin. That's just it. The first time you guys made an assumption you said sorry, but look where we are. We get that Midoriya. No, you don't know Kachan as I do, you don't, so don't assume things it's not right. We understand it won't happen again, we promise. Ochako had tears in her eyes. Promise? We promise. Deku stood nodding before Eureka pulled him in for a hug. His bottom lip began to tremble. So much emotion he put one arm out for Todoroki to join, but he just stood there looking dumbfounded as always. Deku giggled through a little sniffle. Todoroki-kun. He gestured for him to join. Oh. Todoroki leant in, wrapping his arms around the two as they stood in a group hug. Finally, inner peace is a good way to describe the feeling in Midoriya's stomach. The storm finally settling.